and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi on News That Matters. Pakistan has been making news and we need to look at it. There's a lot that has happened in Pakistan since the last time I did a video. Let's go step by step and figure out what's happening in that country. The first one that I'd like to talk about is, of course, the oil crisis, which is engulfing pretty much the rest of the world. Pakistanis are now following or trying to follow the footsteps of India and officially are trying to see how they could use Russian oil. One thing amazes me is that they have an oil supplier right on their western front, but they do not want to buy oil from Iran. They rather as well follow Indian footsteps and get their fuel from Russia, in spite of the fact that they do not have the facilities to refine that particular oil. Let's look at the FATF. What's happening with the FATF is Pakistan is in pretty much the final stages of getting itself rid of the FATF grey list. A lot many in India wanted it to go into the black, but here is Pakistan trying to, escape out of the grey list itself. A month ago, the FATF came out and said that the Pakistanis are sort of on the verge of getting out, and there would be a audit or there would be a review that would be done sometime in October, wherein the teams from FATF would visit Pakistan to verify the information that has been given by Pakistan. On a particular news in this particular subject, the Jaish-e-Mohammed founder Masood Azhar and his brother Abdul Rauf Asgar are two men which are most wanted in India for their roles in many terrorist attacks, including the hijacking of IC-814 in 1999, and of course, the dastardly attack on the Indian Parliament. These two are basically persona non grata even in Pakistan today, and the Pakistanis are trying hard to access information with regards to where Masood Azhar is located. Or if you would like to believe what they're trying to say, this is what the news is coming out of Pakistan. It is interesting that the Pakistanis are trying to look for these kind of people to put them to task. And we also know that there were a couple of other sentencings that were done in the recent past for the Pakistan and for the Pakistani people and the country to come out of the FATF. Pakistan's economy is on the verge of collapse. It's no big news. After Sri Lanka, again, no big news. But this time it is being said by the Pakistani Central Bank, the State Bank of Pakistan, which has given out SOS of sorts to the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif-led government. Things are pretty precarious in Pakistan. Fuel prices seem to be going up. The IMF deal seems to be coming in, of course. And the timeline which is being said is somewhere around the 15th of July where the deal will be finalized, and somewhere around the end of July where they will start getting the first set of money. Indian intelligence, my next story would look at that, has basically alerted the security establishment of the country with regards a visit of a delegation of 12 Sikh soldiers from the British Army to Pakistan. These guys are coming under the cover of something known as the DSN, which is the Defense Sikhs Networks. This DSN in June this year made some comments with regards to Operation Blue Star and posted a graphic representation of the army on its Instagram page. The delegation visited Pakistan on the 28th of June on the invite of the Pakistani Army Chief Qamar Javed Bajwa. I've done a video on this particular subject on the two Ks that the Pakistanis have. One is Kashmir and the second is Khalistan. This video was done with Lieutenant General Dushyant Singh, has been much appreciated. And I request all of you to kind of give it a watch through so that you understand the kind of dangers that India sits on, especially with regards Punjab. Intense floods, and this is something that we are hearing after intense heat waves in Pakistan, has left dozens of people and has killed about dozens of people and left hundreds homeless, especially in areas in Balochistan. Another cause of this, which is being reported by the local authorities, is the bursting of about 8 dams in that region that has basically caused the entire place to get inundated. Next, I'd like to talk to you, as I was talking to you about the IMF. I'd like to just take a step forward and talk about the IMF and the Pakistani military. There is a report which is coming out which talks about the Pakistani military modernization taking a hit, with the government slashing the budget for the Pakistani Armed Forces Development Program by 72 billion rupees. Sounds like a big number. It's about $346 million, a decrease of about 20%. This is something being done to meet a demand which is being put forward by the IMF pretty regularly, if I may add, to achieve a primary budget surplus of about 153 billion rupees, or 0.2 of the national output for the new financial year, in order to revive the IMF bailout policy. So this is basically being talked about from the IMF to ensure that they could begin on the path. So what I look at it is probably one of the preconditions that the IMF might have put on Pakistan. Continuing on with the economic news in Pakistan, Pakistan's government debt increased by about 15.3% over last year in the first 11 months of 2022, FY 2022, the financial year. The total debt of Pakistani government was about 38.7 trillion Pakistani rupees in June 2021, which is increased to 44.6 trillion Pakistani rupees in May. So that's just about a year, and that's been pretty much the most tumultuous year for Pakistan. Pakistan's foreign exchange holdings have also reduced to about $15.742 billion. Remember, sounds like a lot of money, but a lot of this has been given by friends of Pakistan to keep within its banks in order to kind of achieve some sort of liquidity within their system. On these reserves, Pakistan can actually go forward and take further loans and so on and so forth. It's like a vicious cycle that the Pakistanis keep on following themselves into. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund is reportedly planning to forbid Pakistan from seeking additional loans from China. Now, that is very interesting as a news which is coming out. It also, and according to ANI, if I may, the global financial body is telling Pakistan that there are three things. One, Pakistan cannot return Chinese loans from any money that the IMF receives. Pakistan needs to, as I said, not seek any additional loan from China. And third is that the IMF is looking at certain details that the Pakistanis have tried to keep hidden about their deals with China. This is something that will find the Pakistanis coming into sort of a sticky wicket with China. As we all know, the deals that the Chinese signed with various countries on their BRI projects are not revealed anywhere across the world. There was a bit of a mistake made by the previous government, who kind of released a little bit of details to the IMF, and the Chinese were evidently very pissed off with Imran Khan and his government when that actually happened. There is also another news. In October, the EU will be sending sort of a team to Pakistan to kind of relook, assess at the GSP plus status. Pakistan needed to work for a lot of things with regards to this GSP plus status. And if you do follow the media in Pakistan, they are pretty worried about their exports or the export benefits that they do get when they have this sort of a structure connecting them to the European Union. China is also in talks with Pakistan for a construction of a bullet train project and an international airport in POK. That, I must say, can only happen once the protests which are happening in that region, including Gilgit-Baltistan and of course parts of Balochistan, are stopped. I'm sure all of you have been following the news and looking at the videos coming out from there, where the people in those areas are pretty much cursing the Pakistani army for eating up a lot of money and resources from their region. An interesting update that came out, and this came out from the ANI, mind you, wherein the Karachi police claimed the custody of Mohammad Zubair, who's from the Alt News, currently under a bit of a hot water within India. They said that Pakistani citizens cannot be prosecuted by Indian police forces. Now, this probably was a propaganda campaign that was put across, but I'd leave it here for you to analyze what the connotations of this particular small line that came out from the ANI. As far as their western borders are concerned, they have a huge trouble with the TTP and various other separatist elements that have positioned themselves in those regions. We all know the talks with TTP aren't going that well. The TTP is pretty much asking for the entire Pakhtunistan region to be kind of given to them, and of course they're trying to establish a certain law that needs to be put up in those particular regions. What this means is they're trying to become a buffer state between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And mind you, when I say this, that their co-commander in Peshawar, the co-commander in Peshawar has been carrying on these discussions and these negotiations from with the terrorists, as the Pakistanis call them. In related news, 293 Pakistani soldiers, cops, and other security forces personnel have been killed by militants, rebels, terrorists, as you may like to call them, in the first 6 months of 2022. And this is a report coming out by a Pakistani military think tank, which is talking about the safety and security of those regions. Looking at this, we know that the Chinese have had a tough time in terms of security within Pakistan. Senior police officer Li King-chung, and I apologize as always for not being able to pronounce these names a little better, has been made in charge of the security of all Chinese nationals in Pakistan. Any and every security plan with regards Chinese nationals from now on will have to be presented to this particular gentleman and would require his consent. There are about 6,516 Chinese workers currently in Pakistan. Interestingly, the Iron Brother, not the Chinese, the other Iron Brother, which was supposedly in Pakistani dreams, were the Afghans. And the Pakistanis were happily buying coal from the Afghans, of course, Taliban. Taliban kind of realized that they were in a position of strength and they increased the price of coal from $90 to $200. This was quite of a jerk that came to Pakistan, and there was a lot of condemnation that came across by a lot many of the Ashrafia in Pakistan. Talking about China and Pakistan, the Chinese built Neelam Jhelum hydropower project, which is in POK, has shut down after certain cracks in the tunnel. And the Chinese company has refused to comment on requests for a statement on this particular thing. I don't know if you remember, just a couple of minutes ago, I talked about the Chinese wanting to build an international airport and a bullet train in the same region. Let's wait and watch. One of the things that we see, interestingly, especially post Imran Khan's departure from the seat of authority, if I may say that, because it's not power in Pakistan, power lies with the army chief always. We see interactions with the USA and the Pakistani government kind of increasing. We've seen the Pakistani new fresh ambassador meeting Joe Biden, which was a big step in terms of in terms of the diplomatic relations between both the countries. Here was a previous prime minister who kind of waited for a phone call, and here we see tweets that came out of Antony Blinken, which, and I quote, spoke with Pakistani Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari today on expanding the US-Pakistan partnership on economic stability and our joint efforts to support the Afghan people. We look forward to commemorating 75th anniversary of our diplomatic relations. Hashtag PakUS at 75. That is an interesting thing. And I'm sure people from the Imran Khan camp, if they're watching, they're going to use this to their advantage. We've also had a very silly sort of an update that came out of the Prime Minister's office in Pakistan, where he had, paid a tribute to Burhan Wani on his 6th death anniversary. On one angle, they talk about kind of improving the relations with India. They talk about trade with India. And then on the second hand, they do stuff like this. It is interesting that the Pakistanis have still not learned their lessons, that Kashmir and their efforts within Kashmir have brought them to the position that they are in today. And this is just my personal opinion. Let's move forward. The last bit of juicy news that I have for you: the Taliban government has come out with a new anthem in for Afghanistan. Uh, I'm sure I don't think I would be able to recite that for you because it's a little difficult for me and I don't know it. But there is a certain line that came out in that national anthem that has caught certain eyes. The Taliban claims to have a region within that space of land from Badkhashan province to Attock, which is in Pakistan. This particular anthem, mind you, was played in Qatar. The Pakistanis have lodged a domestic diplomatic protest with the Afghan government or the Taliban leadership, and are trying to mend their ways to find a way to ensure this thing does not come out. To all of you who would want a little context, the Taliban considers the land which was occupied by the Pashtuns in Pakistan to be a part of Greater Afghanistan and does not accept the Durand Line. As I said, Pakistan has had an explosive week, lots of news coming out from there. And of course, I will be back for some other news coming from China, coming from the Ukraine war, and the impact that the Ukraine war is having, especially on the West and the rest of the world. I'm sure all of you feel the impact each time you go to the gas station to fill up fuel or to buy some food in the market. Prices are high. On that note, that's it for me today. I'd like to request you here to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, comment on them so that we can interact with each other, share it with your friends, help me grow my community. And if you like what I'm doing, do support me by clicking thanks just below the screen. Thank you so much once again. Until next time, Jai Hind.